Well, good morning from Pittsburgh. I got this 454 model in from 1974, and it had a lot of problems, and I thought, well, here's a learning opportunity. This box had a commercial life of 20 years. I have a license here from, it's hard to see, but this is 1993, and actually there's a 1994 one in there. So you're looking at 20 years of commercial use here, and then it got put in a barn. So a lot of problems, so a lot to discuss. The 454 and the 460 are basically identical in size, and the front door, I will talk about cosmetics because the front door got ravaged in these boxes. Very vulnerable to broken glass, broken plastic, plexiglass. The inserts got beer spilled on them or stained. The operators didn't want to mess with that back in the day, and if a 454 came in with broken glass or something, they just put a 460 front door on, and it really wasn't, it was pretty seamless. And we see a lot of those on Facebook where the doors have been swapped out because up till now the reproduction parts weren't available. And even the 2021 video I published we didn't have access to the parts we have now, so I wanted to point that out. So basically we're going to go through the cosmetics, which I haven't really talked much about in previous videos. Then we're going to go through the steps to get these guys working, and it starts with a power supply, and then we go through the mechanism, and then we go through the selection system, and then the sound system, and then the last thing you do is the fluorescent light ballast and lighting and that kind of thing. So let's get started. I'll show you now what's available for the cosmetic refurbishing, and I think that would hopefully help you, and maybe you might want to buy one of these now where you might want to have passed in the recent years up till now, but they are fixable. There's nothing in these boxes that can't be fixed. These are right before the computer chips, the digital age. There's no outdated computer stuff like, say, the AMI row 82 and 83. Some of those computer chips, good luck, you're not going to get them. But these boxes are fixable, and that's why we're doing this video. Okay, so here we go. Here's our box under discussion. Now, this box has had a tough life. We're going to talk about these faux leather pieces that were on the sides are often gone, or if they're there, they're all brittle and not of much value. The sides of this box are a little rough, but let's concentrate on the front door. You've got a sandwich here of a speaker grill, a piece of plexiglass, an insert, and then the tweeter. 4 pieces get sandwiched together here and put in the front door. The front door, you open it up and then you take off the screws on the side and then pull out this side piece of chrome, and that'll allow you to slide out the components carefully that are broken. And the front door has the black checker grid and then a colored insert behind it, and that colored insert is recessed, and really that still isn't available in a readily usable form. We have the insert sheet, but you have to configure it and cut and configure and put it in there, and it's a little challenging. But at any rate, these are available now. Okay, I had made some in 2021. I ruined this one with some acetone. It was stupid, but now the ones that are being produced in Europe, and by the way, these boxes command more value in Europe, and that's why the European guys are making more reproduction parts, because people are willing over there to put more money into them. This piece is available now, and this Tavir chocolate, rich loom Tavir chocolate faux leather. You can get this in the States. Just look it up on eBay, or you can get it from Jukebox Revival or Jukebox Decor. I'll post the listings later. And then, if the plexiglass is damaged, and they often are. Now this is 12 1/8 inch by 10 inches by 3/16 inch thick. Well, you can get a piece of plexiglass cut and they'll cut the center out for you. Just make the holes with a, if you have your original one, just make an overlay and make the holes with a soldering gun. And then there's a little recessed area for the tabs that hold the speaker, and you can use a Dremel tool to carve that out. And actually it works out very well. So you can make this yourself, okay? The insert we talked about, and then the front glass, that decal is available. This black checkered decal is available now through the Europeans, and I'll show you again the listing. You can get that. And then the insert, though, I had these made at great cost here in the States a couple years ago. I'm using them up, but they have to be then configured. See, you're going to have to cut and paste this in so it has some recessed look to it. It's hard to tell here, but it sits about a ½ inch back from the front glass. But these are the cosmetic parts that are available now. You should know that, and that's going to make this restoration happen. If you don't have this stuff, you got an ugly box, basically. To review what we talked about, the Rich Loom Tough Faux Leather Tavir Chocolate is available online or through Jukebox Revival. Probably make your own. It's not that tough, and it's probably cheaper to get it locally in the States. If you're in the States, if you're over in Europe, then go through Jukebox Revival or see if Takas has it. For the other parts we discussed now, Jukebox Revival or Jukebox Decor, I don't think Victory Glass has this. Certainly you can inquire there. But the 454 center panel decal that needs to be configured is $74. The speaker decals, the purple ones, are 70 euros for a pair. And the front glass backing, I'm sorry, yeah, that's what needs to be configured, is $22. The black checker decal is 74. So these parts are available, and that's really what makes this happen. Otherwise, you have an ugly box. So let's go on to the power supply. Order of business is the power supply, and you must service this. Nothing exists in isolation in the jukebox, so it starts with the power supply, and that of course starts with the cord. I know this is a bit bogus. The cheapest replacement plugs I could find for a box would be from Harbor Freight, but you got to do this. You must have a ground wire for safety. A lot of them are broken off. Enough said. So here's your power supply, and it's for these boxes, it's 48445. You have your stop and write-in relay here. This is the play control relay. Your this is a 5 amp fuse over here. Always check fuses, every one. You just never know what's going to be in there. I've seen drill bits in there, so please do that. And reseat all the relays. This one has a metal retainer. The coil for this is around 400. This is your play control relay. I don't usually clean the contacts of this since it's enclosed. Try to get it back on there if we can. There. Now these two, I often will take them off, check the coil. The coil on these should read around 100. It's these two leads here. It should read 145 ohms. And then I clean the contacts of these and at least be sure they make and break like they're supposed to, okay? These are critical. And if you're having problems later on, it's often good to take off the cover of these relays and put them back in. And then you can see, are they actuating, are they not? And that's how you divide and conquer some of these problems with the selector. I'm just saying. Now over here are your fuses and circuit breakers. Mainly circuit breaker. Two of these have been replaced with fuse holders because they were bad. And I'm going to show you here how to check a circuit breaker. Good circuit breaker at rest should show very low resistance, 3 ohms, 2 ohms, 1 ohm. And then when you press it, it should become an open circuit. And then when you release it, it should go right back to very low resistance. That's a good circuit breaker and one that can be kept in there. If it's not good, you need to replace it with an inline fuse, as I don't know that these are necessarily available at this time. You open up the power supply, and the key components, I've taken apart the connectors here. Anytime you see a Molex connector like this, take it apart and clean it and then put it back to reseat it. It always helps. Inside here, there are fuses right here. There's two of them, 3 amp slow blow. Be sure that's correct, okay? The fuse holders, I failed to mention, just because you replaced it with the right fuse, don't assume that it's good. Some of these fuse holders have become corroded and they don't work, and that can be a nightmare. So just think of that. If you don't have your voltage as you should, think about a bad fuse holder and consider bypassing it with a jumper just to see. But at any rate, inside here, you had your 3 circuit breakers here to check. You've got your current limiting bulb down there to remove and check the continuity, but they're almost never bad, but still do it. And then you have 3 capacitors in here. One is right here, one is down on this board here, and one is in the corner. 1200, 100, 100. Please replace those. Be aware of continuity. I would check the resistors and diodes. You don't have to, because you're going to now, when you're done in here, check everything and be sure. You're going to check voltages on the front. And if the voltages on the front are good, then you can assume your diodes are good. But this is the minimum. Check fuses, check circuit breakers, replace those 3 capacitors, reseat any gang connectors that you see inside, and check as many components as you can. And then put it back together, and I'll show you what the voltages should be. Last thing before we check voltages, always reseat this jumper plug here that's involved in a lot of the circuits, and if it's dirty or loose, you're not going to have success, so that must be serviced. Okay, we'll start with a mechanism plug. Now, I made up this diagram before. At rest on the mechanism, you're only going to get pin 1 and pin 4. You'll see pin 4 is ground, pin 1 is negative 33. The other 2 voltages are available, but only when the play control relay starts. And then over here on the selection system, ground is 1, and then you want to be sure you have negative 33 volt DC on 4 and plus 33 volt DC on 15. And then go to AC and check in reference to ground, pin 6, and you should have your 25 volts. So those are the voltages that are needed for the selection system. Plus 33, minus 33, and 25 volts VAC. Be sure you've got them. On the amp power, it's mainly the 3 on the left there. The middle one is the center tap. So you go ground with that, and then put your red lead on the top, and you should have 46 volts VAC. On the bottom, you should have 46 volts VAC. If you don't, if it's not close to that, you got a problem, and really you can't plug in your amp until you know it's getting the right power. There's ground. There's also the negative 33 volt DC. That's for the mute relay and backdoor reject. But yeah, it's very simple. You just simply put a lead into on the mech here, and then put a lead into here, and you get minus 36. It's supposed to be minus 33. Well, I got to tell you that line voltages across the country are higher in 2024 than they were in 1974. So a little higher voltage is okay. 36 volts is fine. So that's all I'm going to say for the power supply. Put it back in the box, but don't connect anything yet. Just leave it in there until we service the next part, which is the mech. After the power supply is serviced, we'll put the power supply back in the box and go to the mechanism. I feel that the mechanism, you need to know whether you have parts that are broken, and just basically have to service this in order to allow for record transfer back and forth. Know that the magazine motor works, the gripper motor works, and here's how I do this. I usually start by taking out the two motors. It's a 3/8 inch hex nut underneath. This one has two. The gripper motor has, I'm sorry, this is the magazine motor, has 3 bolts underneath, and access from the rear. Take it out, and then your magazine will be able to move, and you can determine any binding or any difficulty. Same with the gripper motor has only 2 bolts underneath that secure it. Take that off. Now, when you service it, now this one has those terrible little plastic covers that you have to be so careful when you remove. I've broken numerous ones, and you really put some WD-40 on them and then slide the cover. I don't have one to demonstrate, but you have to just tap them very gently to get them off, and then tap them back on. Don't pry them off. Now I put some oil here. I put some oil here, grease here, and then I look down in there, put some oil down in there, and try to look at the fiber gear to be sure it's intact and moving. That's basically all I do. The brushes have been removed and cleaned and put back in as well. And then hook them up to a 24-volt power supply and be sure they run. And then just leave them out for now until you complete the mechanism refurbishing, because that way you can move all the parts easily. This is the AB switch underneath. This goes up and down and toggles with the alternating dog. This is the switch. So all these contacts need to be cleaned. Take them off, put them back on in the correct order. Clean these, the diodes and resistors need to be checked here. Be sure your toggle switch works. Maybe clean the contacts up there a bit. And then be sure when you reseat these connectors later that they secure themselves to the the control box. And that's coming up next here. This is underneath. It's secured by 2 screws right by the turntable. Remove it, take off the 4 connectors, and then I clean this was a reverse relay that is shorted, and if I have to say, this is the most frequently encountered problem in this box, the shorted reverse relay. And if your record won't reject by the tone arm switch or the backdoor switch, suspect a shorted reverse relay as the cause. I would go in here and clean all the contacts. When you're finished, note the position of those the armatures there. That's the one on the right has to be over top the one on the left when you're done. That's basically it. Now, the mechanism itself, I'm not going to get into this. There's many videos on how to free up a frozen gripper bow, but at least look at yours. It's common for these little appendages here to be broken off. Look for that. This is your alternating dog down below. It goes back. We've talked now about this. It goes up and down to that switch. Make sure the little alternating dog is completely free of friction, because and then lubricate the track that goes up and down, and that's a very important part of the servicing. Now, the right-in motor, these guys are bulletproof. If they have free movement of their arm here, I don't do much with them. Lubricate the big gear that they attach to. Be sure they're attached snugly when you put it back in if you service it. But these have not been a big problem. We're moving really along. Now the turntable platter assembly, we've talked about the, we always remove the 3 and replace the grommets. There's 3 of them. Be sure your spring is adequate. Lubricate here, lubricate down in the well where the turntable platter goes. And sometimes it's hard to tell until you play the machine, but the idler wheel may just be too brittle and transmits too much noise to the turntable platter, and you may have to replace it. It's about 30 bucks, but try yours. Make sure the surface is clean. Alcohol to the turntable shaft. A drop of oil down into the turntable motor would be okay. But that's about it there. The micro switches on the back door, 4 of them. Be sure to take off the push-on tabs and clean the contacts. The one on top is often the most dirty, and serve it. And then be sure that there's continuity there between the 2 leads from the top, alternating when the switches move. But these 4 switches, they're important, and sometimes the connectors are bad. They have a little broken off piece and don't make a good secure connection, and that causes trouble. Over to the right side, we have our read-in arm. Again, cleaning contacts. You'll leave this in there, but you'll have to clean the right-in circuit board and try to clean the contacts with some 600 sandpaper. Run the wipers over some 600 sandpaper and CRC and try to clean them. Usually the right-in hammers are good. The read-out arm, however, the cancel hammers often will be shorted. Just about when the record is ready to be placed on the turntable is when these guys fire, and if you blow a fuse or circuit breaker at that time, suspect a shorted coil, and it should read 34 to 40 ohms. If it's open, it would be obvious. And now the last thing is the wobble plate assembly. Assuming all the pins are back in place, this, when you flick a pin, it should move the switch over. I think I got them all. Every time you move it, but at any rate, this switch must go over, and you can hear the click, and look for that little piece of spring steel to be sure it's okay, intact. Clean this push-on contacts here, because this wobble plate switch, I mean, that starts everything. That starts the play control relay, which starts the magazine motor. So this apparatus, there's one more contact to clean right here. I haven't had too much problem. You obviously clean the readout circuit board there. And that's, now we got it, okay? See, there's how the switch needs to go. Well, I think that's about it. You're going to put your, reassemble your mechanism at this point, and if you want to try plugging in the mech plug and see how it works, then we can go on to the selection system. Before we go to the selection system, if you want to reassemble all your mech components and then plug in the mech Molex connector on the front of the power supply, then flick a pin on the right side just to see if your machine will go for the record, pick it up, put it down, and then return it. That would be a good thing to do at this point, just to be sure that part of your cycle works. And I think usually it will with minor adjustments. But all right, we're going to go now to the selection system. The selection system is tough. I'm going to say that just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, here's a common problem I had recently. The select light was on, so you know the 25 volts working, but the keyboard's dead. The first and second digit lights didn't work, nothing worked. Well, get a load of this now, what this circuit involves here. It's the power supply, and this isn't a 451, but it's the same. The credit unit, the selection control box here, and the selection control board. Then it goes up to the, it leaves the selection control board, goes up and around through the keys, back into the selection control board again, up through the reset button, and then back to be grounded in the credit unit. Now that's a lot of connections, and I'm just saying in my case it was a dirty reset button. I checked everything all through here, and that's what it was. This has to be making connection to keep the circuit operational. So, and look at this here just briefly. Here's your keyboard, and we've talked about cleaning the connections here and the key. But look at this, just to give you an idea. Look at all the tentacles here, all the Molex connectors, all the push-on gang switches. It's daunting, and dirty connections and loose connections are a big part of servicing this. But at any rate, let's go over the components here. We talked about the K3 and K4 relays. They must be reseated on the front of the power supply. The contacts cleaned. The K3 relay, when it actuates, that contact is necessary for the K4 to stop where it's supposed to. So they really, the contacts have to be cleaned on these. They have to be serviced. We talked about the keyboard. Now the credit unit varies with the models, but we've been through this before. The ADR relay, clean the contacts twice, clean the credit switches, reset the Molex, selection impulse switch. Everything in here needs to be cleaned, and then be sure this fuse is operational. Down here in the bottom of the selection control box, there are 3 fuses, 1 amp. Be sure they're good. Check all the diodes there. Reseat these jumpers here. And these guys, K6 and K7, they at least have a clear cover so you can see what they're doing. And sometimes it's good just to leave the cover of that selection control box open so you can see these guys operate. But they must be reseated and seated firmly in order for this to operate. Very important. And then lastly, the selection control board has been pretty robust. Okay, but I'm going to say in the last 3 years, we're starting to see failure of 2 components here. And I guess it's not a surprise because they're in this circuit, and they're C1 and C6, okay? They're in every selection made, and they are wearing out, and they're these tropical fish capacitors. So I can never find them when I need to here. C1 is right here, okay, and C6 is up here. So those 2 guys should be replaced routinely. It's 0.1 microfarad a film or a ceramic capacitor is fine. But that's relatively new, and I would do that. Clean the contacts on the side, and then hopefully things will work out. But that's basically the minimum that you need to do to get these machines going. All right, we're going to go on to the sound system here briefly. Next up is the sound system, and I'm not sure how many of you are going to tackle the amp. I encourage you to do it because it is fixable. I've had good luck with them. I just want to say a few things, since a lot of this has been covered before, but more and more difficulty is being encountered with the fuse holders up here. You must check the fuses for sure, but I've had several of these corroded and not making good contact and resulting in a loss of channels. So be sure, don't just replace the fuse, but check the connection with a jumper or continuity checker to be sure it's good. Your volume control plug must be cleaned meticulously. As far as the boards go, the days of just getting Bill Bicker's can capacitor kit and replacing the can capacitor, I think is past us now. There's too many of these tropical fish capacitors going bad in the amp, and these are, if they're in the signal pathway, I am replacing these guys. So here's my updated list of all the capacitors I replace in this amp 48350. The ones with an asterisk are the tropical fish capacitors. So if you just want to go through this, and so it's about double the number of capacitors that Bill Bickers would have recommended at this point, or almost double. C53 is the last one. So I wanted you to see that. Just show it to you again quickly. Now, two other things that are we are replacing the op amp unit on both of the preamp boards. I'm doing that routinely. I'm also routinely replacing the PEC4 unit, which is on the side of the driver boards. There's 3 resistors and a capacitor. It's easy to do. That results in much less noise and is helpful. I'm also routinely replacing the 4 heatsink transistors 2N3055 or NTE130 if the voltage drop or bias is less than 0.5 volts. If it's over 0.5 volts, the capacitors, the transistors have been fairly good in my experience, but I am replacing them. Don't forget to have your speaker connections on number 4 on the back door. Don't forget to service the tweeters with a new crossover capacitor, and of course check your cartridge connections as well. Okay, we're going to do just a couple problems I've had, go over with a couple problems I had with this box, and then we'll close out. So despite all these adjustments and cleaning, I put everything back together, and we didn't have a smooth sailing here. First of all, I pressed 3 digits, and the third digit latched. First digit, second digit light worked, but the right-in relay did not start. So I checked voltages. I checked for 25 volts AC on the back on the power supply. Had it, but what I didn't remember to do was to connect the jumper plug down here. This box had some. Here it is, right there. It had some auxiliary equipment in it, and I didn't reconnect it. Well, when I did, the right-in motor worked fine. However, the stop relay never kicked in. The right-in motor just kept going and going and going. And when you have this problem, there's several causes. Certainly a dirty circuit board I've written them down here. I'll just go over them with you. A dirty circuit board and wipers on the read-in side, faulty K4 relay contacts, and a dirty K3 relay contact. So reseat them and clean all of them. Now, also check for 33 volts DC, a blown 1.6 amp fuse or a loose connection in the circuit. An open 120 ohm resistor in the stop relay circuit, that's in the power supply. Faulty right-in circuit board, not so much. Poor connection on the jumper plug in front of the power supply. We talked about that many times. It's right down here. Reseat that. And then an open connection in the third level of the push button switches. And that's where we get into that long circuit I showed you there. All the push buttons are in series, and if any of them are not making good contact, you're not going to maintain continuity of that plus 33 volt And then a bad selection control panel circuit board is also a possibility, or those diodes that surround it. So you got a lot to check there. If you've got a runaway right-in motor that's that never stops, these are the areas you look for. One more thing I have with this box that I haven't run into before. It's not extremely important, but there's a light sequencer up here. Now this is not digital. It's run by a off the magazine movement over here. So there's two connectors down there on the bottom. Well, I didn't have the second digit when it registered. I had the first digit light, 1 or 2, but I didn't have the second digit, and then I had the third digit was fine. But what that turned out to be, just so you know, it's in the back here. There's a jumper plug with a 5-watt resistor, and sure enough, the resistor was open. So I replaced that, and now I've got a nice light sequencer. All right, well, I'm gonna call it quits for this video. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you got something out of it, that you have some take-home pointers that you can use to get your box working. As of June 2024, I think this approach that I'm using is appropriate to give yourself a running start to get these boxes going. And then if specific problems develop subsequently, then at least you know that you've checked this, you've checked that, and you can rule out most of the components that you know are good. You can concentrate on the ones that you think may be bad. Now, having said that, I can't say enough also about the Facebook Marketplace and Facebook forums and groups. There's a Rockola Collector Club and a Rockola Jukebox Collectors group that you can join on Facebook and ask specific questions. Like every time I press the second digit, number 6, it won't select, but all the others work. Well, that I can't cover stuff like that in these videos, and that's why if you have specific questions like that, you can get 50 people like myself to look at it and give you their opinion. So, all right, well, I have no further plans for immediate follow-up videos at this point. I'm sort of exhausted. I've told you everything I know, so all of you enjoy your summer, and I hope you also get your jukeboxes working. Thank you.